Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Startup Standard with me, Tarang. And this is going to be an amazing podcast because today I have an amazing guest with me. He's a founder of MasterTalk, and I've got Brendan Kumarasamy. How are you, man?
Very good, Tara, brother.
Yeah, so I'm very humbled to have you here because I think I've seen so many videos on YouTube, and I've learned a lot from those videos. And basically, I've also have enrolled in so many courses of public speaking, and I've never got such a valuable content anywhere. And I've seen so many videos on YouTube, and I end up feeling that I've wasted my 1 hour or 45 minutes. It's like that. But and you make very small videos, and they are very specific about topics. Now you give three skills. Like I've seen one of your video where you have given three exercise to improve your one skill, and that's amazing, man. So before starting this episode and getting into questions and stuff, I really want you to introduce yourself, and I want to know more about you.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. So, my name is Brendan. I'm the founder of MasterTalk. It's a YouTube channel I started to help the world master the art of communication and public speaking. And I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation, Taran, because you are actually my ideal person. You know,
Oh.
in the sense that all of the pain points you mentioned is the reason why I do this. You
Yes, man.
know, when I was in university, I used to do these things called case competitions. So think of it like professional sports, but for nerds, right? In the sense where other people my age were playing sports like cricket, basketball, footy, and all that stuff. I wasn't really into that kind of stuff. So instead, what I did is I applied the same competitive spirit to presentations. So in 3 years, I'd presented hundreds of times, coached a bunch of people, and really improved my game at communication. So when I started working at IBM as an executive, as a consultant, I mean, and I was doing really well for myself, I just asked myself this question, which is, how do I add value to society? And much like you, a lot of the people I used to be coaching back in the day for different competitions around the world, they kind of just said, "How did you learn how to speak?" And I just said, I don't know. I kind of just helped a bunch of people in my program. We all kind of helped each other out. And since your podcast is about startups, I'm also very involved in the startup ecosystem. So I was helping a lot of technical founders with their presentation decks. But everyone kept asking me like, "How did you get better?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just helped other people, and they kind of got together." So after the seventh person asked me that question, Taran, I just said, "Why don't I go watch what's on YouTube?" So I spent a day at a couple months before I started working at the company. So I just wanted to watch. Dude, I was vomiting in my mouth the whole day. I saw YouTube channels like 80,000 subscribers, 300,000 subscribers, and I was watching all the videos and I was like, this is terrible. Like, why are people putting this crap out in the world? And to give you some idea, because you're someone who's in that where I can see you've invested in a lot of courses, you're clearly committed to this stuff, hence why you're staying up so late for this conversation. The reason, Taran, why all the information is bad, it's actually normal because all of the best speech coaches in the world don't share content for free. They don't because you can make a lot of money as a speech coach. So the people who are just as good as me or better, right, probably 5% or better than me maybe, they don't share their content for free because if I have 10 CEO clients, I don't need to help you. I don't need to make free videos. I'm making $300,000 Canadian a year. All right, I don't need to make free stuff. And that really pissed me off. Like that really made me mad. Like I got really frustrated because I just said, what about the people like you? What about worse? What are people younger than us who can't even afford a course? I said it was nuts. What about all of these ideas? Whether you're a startup founder, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a business owner, or somebody wants to raise money for charity. I said, how can we create a world? How can I create the tools so that everyone can master communication for free? So that they can all share their ideas with the world. So that was the motivation behind Master Talk.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And what I see that it has become a great business because every time I watch a video and they here comes a ad like take this course and you will master your public speaking skill. and and it's good like to share value and share good stuff, but you are not actually giving good value, and you are not giving good content to the people. You're just trying to make money out of it. And I think you are doing a great job out of it. And how long have you been doing this, people?
Right. So I've been coaching people for 5 years. Like I
Okay.
started when I was 19 or 20. I was coaching people for different competitions in business school. And I wasn't really
Mhm.
good back in the day. Of course, I was learning my skills. But I started YouTube last year because my friend told me to share my message with everyone else. And I just didn't want to because I wanted to focus on being an executive at IBM and, be to take the normal path. But then he said like the impact that you could make is so much bigger than just this university, right? I mean, this conversation, I never would have met you if I never started MasterTalk, right? So I think there's these exciting opportunities, and it just became addicting. It became really fun to make an
Okay.
impact in that way.
Okay. So I think you've been doing this, as you said, from 5 years now. And do you think that by coaching people for public speaking before you got your first job had kind of helped you to get your first job?
Absolutely. Like just to build on this, Taran, the idea is the reason why most people do these competitions is to get the top jobs in business school. So all of these people, they go on to become executives of companies because all the companies sponsor those competitions. So you get to meet those executives when you're 21, 22. They see you present, they're like, "Oh, I want this person in my company. And I want this person to work for me." So that's what happened essentially. Is that's how I got the job and that's how I ended up being very successful in the corporate world because those are the types of people that they're looking for. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
And yeah, absolutely, man. And you've spoken about your experience with second language, like which is French, and you have struggled a lot, but you have overcome that fear of that sphere of second language, and you have presented like presentation when you've talked about it in some podcast. I really don't remember that. So could you please explain on that? Could you please, how did you overcome that fear of second
Yeah,
language?
absolutely, man. And I get it, right? Most people are listening. Probably their first language is Hindi or Urdu or Gujarat or Tamil or something, and their second language is English, right? So they struggle a lot with their English language. I had the same issue just with different languages, right? So my first language is English, but my second language is French. My third language is Tamil. Right? So I get it, right? It's challenging to kind of switch between. So what's the strategy? The strategy is simple. The difference between your first and your second language has nothing to do with intelligence. Zero. It's not that we're less smart or we should be more discouraged. No, no, no. The difference is just vocabulary, Tara. That's it. That means, you're from a part in India, you understand the cultural context there of your language, whatever the first language is. So it's easier for you to communicate in that language. When you go to English, the issue is we don't understand the cultural context of the language and we don't really talk it that much. So when it's time to speak, we're using the words, but we don't really understand the sayings. So when you try and translate words, it doesn't work. So how do you fix this? It's actually really simple. This is what I did. Write out your speech in your first language. If your first language is in Hindi, if your first language is Telugu, if your first language is Tamil or any other language, write in that language first because that is what will give you all the cultural context and you'll know exactly what you want to say. Step two, translate that language, translate that script into the language you need to speak it in. So let's say first language is Telugu, second language is English. Write it in Telugu, translate it in English. And then the third thing is present that script, present that presentation to people whose first language is that language. So, example once again, Telugu to English, take the English presentation and then present it to other English speakers like me. So that way, and it's not hard to find. You just go on forums online. You can find other English speakers around the world who will give you feedback. And then what happens is then they'll fix your vocabulary. They'll go, "Oh, Taran, actually, this translation doesn't work. You got to change this." Or this is really good. This is what we call a vocabulary test. I did this all the time when I had to present in French. And that's how I got better at French. Same thing. Do the same exercise. It'll work like a charm.
And the thing that I faced is, when I speak in English, I kind of think in Hindi and then I translate it into my head and kind of try to speak in English. And I struggled a lot with this when I used to give speeches in my school time. So I got it what you were trying to say. Now you also do so many things. You run your YouTube channel, and you coach people, and you also work as a transformation consultant in IBM. And you are also coming as a guest on so many podcasts. So how do you manage your time? So I want to talk about time management, because I struggle a lot with this. I i try to find ways to do this, and I make timetables, but I really struggle a lot with this. How do you do that?
I'll use Warren Buffett's technique that I think is works wonders. It's called the focus framework. So essentially, the story was, Warren Buffett went up to his pilot one day and he said, "What do you want to do out of life?" The pilot said, "Oh, I'm not sure. I make pretty good money. You pay me well, right? So I'm not really sure what I want out of life." And then, Warren's a really nice guy. That's what he's known for. He's like the world's richest and nicest guy, I guess. I think that's a good combination to give. So Warren looks at the guy and he's like, "Okay, let me make you do an exercise." So the exercise he makes him do, Taran, is he makes him write down the 20 things he wants to do in life, like bucket list. Travel to this country, do whatever the thing is, start a podcast. So he writes down 20 things. And then Buffett looks at him and he goes, "Pick 5 of those things, the most important 5." He picks those 5. And then Warren tells him, "Your whole life, you're going to focus on those 5 things because you won't have time to do the rest." I think that is the clue. That is the number one way to manage your time. In my life, Taran, I only have 3 priorities. That's it. One of them's MasterTalk, other one's my family. I mean, yeah, other one's family, and third one is charity. Right? Charity means, you probably, since you've done research on it, I'm involved with charity water and the water crisis and all that stuff. So like I only have 3 priorities in life. Notice how there's no other priority. Like there's nothing else. I don't watch Netflix. I don't waste my time with other things. So like just today, I probably did like 4 interviews. Then tomorrow I got another 7 or whatever. So like I'm really focused on those 3 things: growing the YouTube channel, my family, and charity. And then when you know what you want to prioritize in life, it's important to you. Then you take your time, the same time that everyone else has, and then you optimize it around those 3 goals. So the first step, find your 3 priorities, and those priorities will change. After MasterTalk becomes a lot more successful, maybe I'll do less shows, I'll focus my time differently. But then after that, once you prioritize, it's much easier to maximize. That's one part. Second part is having a to-dos that makes sense every day. So I'll give you an example. I call this the quick win of the day. My goal every day is simple: write a YouTube video. If I write a YouTube video, I win. If I don't write a YouTube video, I lose. So if I'm having a horrible day, I messed up, I missed all my meetings, everything's but I wrote the video, I win. If I don't write the video, I lose. That's my quick win. So everyone should make a small list, 3 to 4 things that they have to do every day. So for me, every day I need to pitch 10 podcasts. I need to send 20 emails. I'm just giving examples random. I need to comment on these number of YouTube channels, and I need to make YouTube content. As long as I get those priorities done, I always win. So make that list and figure out what you want to prioritize, and you're already, in my opinion, the top 5% of everyone in the world who manages their time.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. So the next question I want to ask is that you are working in a corporate world,
Right.
and I've seen a lot of people talking about the culture of corporate. like it's so, they say that it's so intense. People always were just working for their numbers, and there's so many politics in that. So have you ever experienced that, or is it just people have portrayed it in a bad light?
That's a great question. I think it really depends which company you work for. I always tell people, my number one career advice for people is, don't pick a company just based on the money. Because if you do that and you don't like the team that hired you, you're going to be miserable every single day of your life. So I got lucky. The culture at IBM Montreal is very great. I work hard. Don't get me wrong. It's not a 9 to 5 job, right? Like weekends I get off, so I'm pretty happy to do interviews and just chill and have a good time. But during the week, yeah, it's pretty intense. Not this week though, but last week was. But I think the key is, as long as the culture is great, you can get through it. Every company is going to have politics, right? That's just the nature of it. So the way I see it, everyone's got their own priority. For me, my goal is financial freedom, right? So every money, all the money I make at IBM, I save all of it. I still live in my mother's basement. I reinvested in stocks. I reinvested in the YouTube channel so that in 3 years I could just do this full time and I don't have to answer to anyone anymore. But that's something you earn over time. That's why my advice to people is when you start making money the first time, after a job, you get a nice job at IBM or something, don't leave your parents' house. Just stay there, save your money, help them pay the rent, whatever, keep your expenses low, invest so that when you have enough money to retire off of it, then you could just make anything you want and do whatever you want. I think that's the secret.
And as you have mentioned that staying with your parents is the best thing that you can do while you are in your 20s, I think. and
Absolutely.
and that's the way how South Asian countries, people from South Asian countries usually do, like Indians, Sri Lankans, and Bangladesh, Pakistan people. We really love our house. I'm not talking about that people in Western countries don't love their house, but we are very connected with our families. And uh, and that and I think that's very good suggestion.
I'm with you, man. Like I've been fascinated because I'm born and raised in Canada, right? In the sense of I'm in the middle of these two worlds. You have a lot of people who are born in Canada who aren't South Asian, who are native to their country, and they're like, oh, I want to move out at 18. But I was like, but you want to be an entrepreneur, start a business. Why don't you just stay at home? You'll have a lot. You won't have any rent. Your expenses will go down, the chances of being successful will go up. So remember, it always starts that on what is your priority.
Yeah,
If your priority is to get married at 24, have kids, find a beautiful partner and focus on your family, then yeah, move out, go work a job. But if your goal is to be a business owner, if your goal is to share an important idea with the world, share with millions of people, and you want to make sure you're successful, put all the odds in your favor.
yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. So now let's move on to the main thing, and which is public speaking. Like you are the expert in this. You are an expert in this, and it's your forte. So the thing that I want to talk about is fear of public speaking. Like I've struggled a lot, and I want to share experience that I've had while I was in my school. So it was about 11th standard. I had to give a speech and in front of my whole school, and I got 4 days to like kind of like prepare for this. And I was very well prepared, I was very confident. But as I stepped onto the stage and I stood up in front of the mic, my legs were shaking, and I was having sweats in my palms. And after just speaking 2 lines, I just forgot what to say. Like I was blank. And sadly I had to step down to this from the stage, and it was very embarrassing. And I've seen so many people struggling uh, in this thing. Like they fear a lot, they and you have done it very well. So what are the suggestion would you give to those people who really struggle a lot?
Yeah, man. Like I totally get it. I started MasterTalk when I was 22, and I started coaching executives of companies when I was 23. Like people who are double my age. So I get it. We're all going to be scared, and I definitely had a lot of insecurities when I started. I'm a lot more confident these days, but when I started, it was definitely challenging. And what I would say is the following: the fear will always be there. It's not going to go away, but it needs to lose to your message. If your fear and your message got into a boxing ring and they were fighting, make sure that your message always gets the knockout punch. Make sure that the message always wins against the fear. As long as the fear loses to the message, Sarang, you're going to be able to move forward. And the issue with most people out there is they don't have a belief system. They don't believe in anything. They don't stand for anything. They don't want to fight for anything. Why would you want to get better at communication? It makes no sense. If you don't stand for everything, you don't push for anything, there's no point to mastering communication. But for me, the reason I did is because I wanted to make videos for people who couldn't afford me. I thought it was crazy that a 15-year-old girl in India like Rishi wants to raise a bit of money for charity and can't afford a speech coach, so she has to be scared of public speaking for the rest of her life. How does that make sense? So because I believe in sharing that content with her, am I still scared to post the videos? Absolutely. I'm not scared anymore, but at the beginning I was. But I believed in helping her so much that the fear lost to the message. Understand who you're doing it for. And the way that you figure that out is the following: who suffers from your inability to take action every single day? Every day that you wake up and you don't do the thing, you don't start the podcast, you don't get on the stage, you don't do the thing, what happens? If you're clear on the person who suffers, you'll never be lazy again.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And you'll never be fearful either.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so the next thing I want to ask is, if suppose someone is just have started learning public speaking, so what are the tips and tricks would you give to that person?
Right, so here's the easiest trick in the book that works for everybody. I call it the puzzle method. So public speaking is a lot like a jigsaw puzzle. You know those thousand-piece puzzles you kind of put together. So if I asked you, Taran, when you do these puzzles yourself, which pieces do you start with first and why?
Like corner ones?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
But you got it right.
yes.
Absolutely. Most people start with the corner pieces,
Yes.
and I agree. Right. So the question to ask ourselves is, why don't we do that in public speaking? We have a presentation at work or at school in 2 days. So what do? We shove a bunch of content,
Hmm.
right? We start with the middle pieces first. Then we
Hmm.
get to the last slide and it sounds something like this. Yeah, so thanks. That's 97% of all the presentations I've seen
Yes,
in my life,
absolutely.
right? So how do we fix this? It's easy actually. Once again, public speaking is like a jigsaw puzzle. Start with the corners first. Practice your introduction 50 times, not 3 times, not 5 times, 50 times. It actually will only take you an hour. It's not that hard. Conclusion, same thing. What's a great movie with a terrible ending? A terrible movie. Conclusion, 50 times. It'll take you another hour. In 2 hours of practice, Taran, you'll already be 10 times better at communication because nobody does the same introduction over and over and over again. Right? So then when you tackle the middle, you'll have a lot of confidence. You'll say, wow, I'm really good. Think about your podcast. What episode are you at now? 770. What's the episode now?
It's three. It's third,
3.
third.
Okay, awesome. So how would you compare your communication skills when you started versus where you are now at episode 3?
Like I'm very confident about speaking. Like, and I think that thought process has also changed. Like I can think of a lot of things because, and the knowledge has increased. Third podcast, so I'm not pretty confident about it, but yeah, I
Right. But the
very pretty
question
optimistic about it.
exactly, that's the key, man. So when you're at episode 30, when you're at episode 60, 90, every single podcast host has always said the same thing. When I get to 30, I'm a lot better than where I was at 30. Same thing with me. When I started YouTube, I sucked. And if you don't believe me, I know it's hard. I know you don't believe me because you look at me, you're like, yeah, you didn't suck. Go watch my first video. And it started like, hey guys, I'm the founder of MasterTalk. That's how it started, right? And now I'm obviously better than I used to be. But I think the key is the reason you're getting better, the reason I got better is because the format doesn't change. Right? It's always the same podcast with the different guests, same questions, very similar, and you get better over time. Same thing with public speaking. If you apply puzzle to all of the other presentations you do in your life, you'll just be a lot better as a communicator because your structure is going to be a lot more clear. Okay, practice the introduction a lot, practice the conclusion a lot, and then tackle the middle.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I want to bring back this conversation to about the career options, and you are having a great career. You got your job at IBM, so I also want to talk about the people. What would be your suggestion to the people who are in their late 20s or 30s and who really wanted to change their job because they, they think that this job is not the best fit for them, and after a long time, after like do probably working for 10 years and 20 years, they have realized this, and now they want to change their lane and want to follow their passion, but they can't do because I think because of their family conditions, and they have responsibilities. So what suggestion, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, so I'll give you the technique that I use to figure out what I wanted to do in life, Taran. And the trick is simple. I call it the process by elimination. It's a lot easier to figure out what you don't want to do versus what you do want to do. So, for example, if I asked you, Taran, do you want to be a plumber?
Probably not now.
Right. Do you want to be a garbage man?
Yeah, not now.
Right. So there's nothing wrong with these careers,
Yes,
by the
yes,
way.
absolutely.
So for anyone who's listening, they pay a lot of money. Actually, I would have actually maybe I should have become a plumber. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it's empowering to figure out what you don't want to do. And then with the list of maybes and yeses, it's much easier for you to make a decision. So I would start there. When I was 12, I did this exercise. I don't know how I figured that out, to be honest. Kind of just sat there and I said, oh, let me figure this out. I don't know. It was kind of weird. But, anyways, you do that first. And then after, you have a small list of careers left, and you go, okay, based on this list, what am I actually good at? So, which career would I be the most successful in? And then based on that, then you pick the career. So I would start the exercise there. And then the second part of that exercise is understand the consequences of not doing it. As far as I'm concerned, Taran, we got one life. And if we choose
Absolutely.
to stay in that one career our whole life, I want people to imagine the pain they'll go through if they don't make the switch. That's why I never wanted to go through the pain and I just kept switching. I made the decision early. That's why I'm pretty happy right now. So I encourage people to do the same. And the third part of it is when you pick a job, it's a lot more important to focus on what sucks about the job than what's good about the job. It's easy to get lost in what's great. There's a lot of perks to being at IBM. Amazing health benefits, great pay, I get to travel around the world, but I also work 70 hours a week, right? I also don't get to see my family that much. So it's about understanding the payoff. What is the price you need to pay? And if you can live with that price, you're picking the right career.
I think absolutely. I think you also have to give yourself time to sort of analyze yourself. You should analyze yourself, that like you have given yourself time to to think that what career would be the best one for me. And most people really don't do this. They get out of the school, they enroll into any course, and they pass out and they get into one job and they continue doing without thinking about their life. Yeah, you mentioned great point. And now I want to end up this podcast, but by asking you some few questions. Like, if you had a chance to just give 5 books to all the human beings to make the difference in their life, what would be those 5 books?
Yeah, so usually when I get asked the book question, Taran, I usually like to recommend one because nobody goes out there and buys five. But I'm happy to share you my full list after the show. But the one book I will recommend is Thirst by Scott Harrison. I think Scott Harrison's a genius in storytelling, marketing, branding, and the way that he's applied public speaking and storytelling to his organization, Charity Water, is very impressive. I mean, he's raised hundreds of millions of dollars for the cause, and he's a personal hero of mine. So I highly recommend the book. It's a very optimistic, hopeful tale on how to actually solve a problem. Because frankly, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty annoyed at all the negativity and pessimism out there. And
Yes.
when you see a guy like Scott who's actually solving something and doing it really well, he's someone you definitely want to be following and checking out.
Yes, man, absolutely. And so, last question, that I've I've seen so many videos of entrepreneurs talking about traveling. They say that traveling teaches you so many things that books really probably can't. And what do you think about traveling? Do you travel?
I mean, here's my perspective, right? In the sense of, they also say cooking sometimes helps you get better. Like it doesn't really matter, right? I think for me, here's the thing that's the most been effective in my life. Traveling is great and everything, and I recommend it, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing, the one thing that all successful people have in common is the following: they ask themselves hard questions about life. That's it. The only habit I would love people to implement, besides my public speaking stuff, is ask yourself a hard question every day about life. What are you pretending not to know? If you had all the money in the world, how would you spend your time? And if you died tomorrow, what would your funeral speech say about you? These are the questions that you need to find answers to. Answering these questions is more important than going to Costa Rica for a week, right? If you sit down every day and you ask questions, and what's great about these questions is you don't need to have any money. Okay. 4 years ago, I was a broke student like everyone else was, but I asked the questions. And because I asked the questions, I was able to find my own answers. Like not moving out of my mother's basement despite making a pretty good income, like not owning a fancy car, like not doing dumb shit that most people do, but focusing on what I really cared about, which is bringing Master Talk to the world. So, with your questions and answering those questions, you'll find out what to prioritize in life and what to actually do with life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I think it also depends, and so many people becomes conformist, like, and it also it that's very and it's become difficult for them to kind of think in a way that you are thinking, or probably I think. And I think this is also, so you have to think, you have to give yourself time and think about life. What do you want to do? And why are you here? This is the one and the only life you're going to get. And how are you going to feel when you are on your deathbed? And that's are the questions that we all should ask ourselves. And thank you, man. It was a great episode for you,